Hi everybody, I'm Maryam. Just to explain, I'm wearing a shiny brown scarf and shiny pink shoes, and a black dress. The colors didn't go together. Anyway, I'm Maryam once again, and I am also wearing a sunflower lanyard, which I have recently discovered. It's very cool, and it also indicates any invisible disabilities any person anywhere might have. I work at GDI Hub with Kathy, Vicky, and others on the 80-20-30 Data and Evidence Program, where I work on storytelling and community collaboration. Throughout this summit, yesterday and today, we have heard about the importance of out of the lab thinking, the value of lived experience expertise, and designing not just for disabled people, but with disabled people. So Chris talked about partnering with the communities to design solutions to real problems. Yesterday, Pete mentioned we should expand the conversations around disability beyond the functional use of AT. And Niall from Koala mentioned that AT users are at the center of innovation in Koala, and rightfully so. And in the afternoon, Kathy and Anna talked about disability dongles, which is described by Liz Jackson, who coined the term as a well-intended, useless solution to a problem that doesn't exist. Well, for disabled people anyway. In
Hello
a recent
everyone, this is Banya.
Okay. Banya is coming after this. So Liz also wrote in a recent article in response to a news article explaining a new disability dongle device. And she said individuals who have a socio-technical fluency of disability are not treated as experts, which is why we always or often wind up in comment sections rather than in the real stories. AT users should be at the part of AT innovation. At the heart of AT innovation. Without having AT users at the core of our design process and listening to them, it's impossible to fully understand their needs, their challenges, and the context in which they would use or want to use their AT. For example, beyond functionality, the social acceptability of AT is a core issue that impacts AT adoption. People want to use AT that helps them to be part of their society, to not be stigmatized, to be productive, and to live life on their own terms. And we've heard about that from Koala yesterday and Chris today. Nothing about us without us. So the storytelling project aims to empower disabled people to share their stories and self-advocate for access to AT. We are exploring the positive and also the negative impact of AT on disabled people's self-determination and participation in society. Why storytelling? Storytelling is one of the oldest tools for knowledge creation and sharing. In many cultures, folklore and oral history are still still one of the predominant ways of bringing together communities and working towards a cause. The question we pose with this project is this: how can storytelling serve as a catalyst for self-advocacy, not only for the right to have access to AT, but also the right to participate in and lead the design of AT innovations? So one of the ways we are addressing this complex question is by partnering with organizations like the International Disability Alliance to draw on their extensive experience and expertise in disability advocacy, mobilization, and capacity building. Our project with IDA, called Positioning Organizations of Persons with Disabilities, that's OPDs, as equal partners on AT. It is a stepping stone to build the knowledge and tools necessary for OPDs and wider disabled communities to advocate for the right of access to AT and bridge the gap between AT users and AT innovators. Now, I would like to introduce our next speaker, Amba Salalkar. I hope I'm pronouncing the name correctly. Amba is a senior manager at the help desk team at the International Disability Alliance, focusing on the provision of inclusive technical assistance to OPDs and partners through the engagement of his community of practice. Amba joined IDA in the summer of in September 2019 as a Bridge CRPD SDG Fellow, and since August 2020, she has been full-time staff with the Capacity Building Unit. She's a criminal lawyer by training and moved into disability policy advocacy space after a 7-year career in criminal trial litigation. Since 2012, she has supported organizations of persons with disabilities in India, including from underrepresented groups and women with disabilities, to participate in policy advocacy. She has also worked with several organizations as a trainer and safeguarding consultant. She's a recipient of the Chevening Gurukul Fellowship for Leadership and Excellence. Amba identifies as a woman with psychosocial disability and is joining us remotely from Chennai, India. Amba, over to you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Good afternoon, everyone from India. My name is Amba Salilkar, and I am the Senior Manager of the IDA Site Savers Help Desk at the International Disability Alliance. And it is an absolute pleasure to be here with you despite all of the technical issues. I'm here to talk about OPD engagement in assistive technology. The Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities has been the tangible recognition of the shift in approach towards the rights and requirements of persons with disabilities. We, as persons with disabilities, must be meaningfully consulted and involved in all aspects concerning our lives and experiences, and duty bearers, stakeholders, and society must move away from the idea that professionals, family members, and others take decisions on our behalf. The history of the disability movement includes decisions being taken in our best interests, which to our minds today is thankfully inexplicable. But let's take a rather shocking example from history. It's hard to believe that the method of reading and writing, developed by Louis Braille in the 1830s, was not even adopted within the school in which he himself was a teacher. One would think that a methodology for reading and writing for the blind that was developed by a blind user would be readily accepted by all stakeholders. Instead, which had been developed by people without disabilities, which was raised lettering on large printed books. It was only on the demand of blind students a few years after Braille's death that the methodology was adopted within the school in which he piloted it. And it took several decades for Braille to be standardized as the system of communication technology, again, despite being developed by a blind person and being validated by users of that technology. This story is part of disability folklore, and it is nothing new to the International Disability Alliance, which I represent today. IDA's genesis was from a group of organizations, including organizations of persons with disabilities, that negotiated what would eventually become the Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities. We are now a proud alliance of 8 global and 6 regional members, bringing together thousands of OPDs that lead and inform our work. IDA's ethos is to advocate for the views and experiences of persons with disabilities through their representative organizations and ensure the meaningful participation of organizations of persons with disabilities in the development and implementation of policies that touch our lives. We use mirroring approaches of capacity building of organizations of persons with disabilities and high-level advocacy based on the experience from the grassroots to ensure that the global reaches the local and vice versa. We all now stand at the threshold where decades of advocacy have led to a pivotal moment in the movement for assistive technology. The obligation of states to promote the availability of affordable assistive technology is well established in several articles of the Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities. The Special Rapporteur on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities, in her report on disability inclusive policies, underlines assistive technologies and support services as an important component of disability inclusive policies. The UN Partnership on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities has recognized preconditions that are indispensable in addressing the requirements and views of persons with disabilities, which also discusses the availability of AT. The World Health Assembly Resolution on AT urges member states to develop, implement, and strengthen policies and programs to improve access to AT. There has been substantive generation of research as well, including through the recent UNICEF WHO report on assistive technology and the case for investing in assistive technology published by AT Scale. We also have strong commitments from a variety of stakeholders, including multilateral agencies, international development actors, INGOs, as well as government agencies on assistive technology. In 2018, under the Global Disability Summit, which is co-hosted by the International Disability Alliance, there were 32 commitments made on assistive technology, and 33 additional commitments came forth in 2022. At the Youth Global Disability Summit, assistive technology was identified as one of the core issues for the call to action developed as an outcome of the event. We have the creation of multilateral partnerships like AT Scale and a real resource commitment from a variety of donor organizations. On the other hand, at the ground level, access to AT has not achieved the status of a right, which respects the choices and autonomy of persons with disabilities and which reflects the diversity of the disability movement. For those of us living in the global south, we have seen various ways in which access to assistive technology is hampered when we look at the 4 A's and Q framework: the availability, accessibility, adaptability, acceptability, and quality. From our work, instances where persons with disabilities who need assistive technology the most have been hampered by distance, finance, and often awareness in accessing assistive technology. And this is particularly true for persons from underrepresented groups of persons with disabilities or persons experiencing intersectional forms of marginalization, including women with disabilities. The issues of competing agendas, ongoing humanitarian crisis, and resourcing are what our OPDs have to contend with in their advocacy. For some groups, we are not even considered as stakeholders in AT, such as persons with intellectual disabilities and persons with psychosocial disabilities. We respectfully argue that the participation of organizations of persons with disabilities is integral to the meaningful realization of access to assistive technology for persons with disabilities. At all stages, be it policy formulation, program design, service delivery, including repairs, and monitoring and evaluation, there is a crucial role to be played by OPDs representing the diversity in the disability movement, including from underrepresented groups. It is really only when this meaningful participation is achieved that we can really think of successful outcomes leading to the full and effective participation of OPDs. And this is where the assistive technology community of practice plays such a crucial role. We at IDA are proud to be partnering with the GDI Hub and with AT Scale on several initiatives to address the gap, including through establishing an assistive technology community of practice to serve as a reliable source of AT information, technical advice, and as a reference group for stakeholders, including OPDs, working at the local, regional, and global levels. At IDA, we are further supporting this community of practice through our help desk, which has been set up with the support of Sightsavers International. Under the help desk, we receive a variety of requests related to the provision of inclusive technical assistance, including related to assistive technology. And we hope to bridge this gap by bringing in the meaningful participation of OPDs. A crucial part of meaningful participation is capacity building of the AT user movement on all of the issues and gains that have happened at global advocacy. The knowledge gap of OPDs around global advocacy on AT is concerning. And at IDA, we believe that knowledge is power. Together with partners, we are bringing technical expertise together with our established methodologies on inclusive facilitation, data collection, and mentoring of this community of practice to build the capacity of AT users to be actively involved in the movement around assistive technology. This means that we are collecting disaggregated data on the experiences of underrepresented groups of persons with disabilities in accessing AT. We are mentoring a cadre of fellows across regions to gain exposure on the issues, to bring the learnings back to the larger movement, including through the development of an online course for OPDs and dissemination of relevant information, which is in development on the movement. It is my pleasure to now hand the floor to my colleague, who is the IDA AT Fellow Banya Ojo, for his reflections. At IDA, we remain eager, ready, and willing to engage with all stakeholders for the impactful and meaningful participation of OPDs in the realization of assistive technology for all, including those who are the most left behind. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Amber, for a great, great description of the project, and also, I guess it sort of demonstrates the amount and the breadth of work IDEA is doing, and that's why we are so excited to be working with them on this project, and we're not going to let go. Vicky is nodding. We're going to keep working with them. And as Amba mentioned, that we are training a group of 80 user fellows across South America, Asia, and Sub-Saharan Africa, who will be working with us throughout this project to develop resources and to test the resources that we develop for their efficacy, their effectiveness, and trying out things in communities. So we are taking a very much user-centered design approach to this course as we do at GDI Hub. As Amba mentioned, our next speaker is one of the 80 user fellows, Banya Ojok. I'll give a brief introduction and then we'll pass on to the tech team to play a pre-recorded message from Banya. Banya Ojok holds a BA degree in community psychology from Makerere University in Kampala, Uganda, and a certificate in capacity building at Egmont Hochskolen, apologies for the mispronunciation, Oder, Denmark. Since 2013, Banya has conducted various research and survey studies and developed training and user manuals, seminars and workshop facilitation, monitoring tools, evaluations, concept papers, projects, proposals, and strategic plans for individuals and civil society organizations. Previously, Banya was a board member and secretary to the National Youth Committee of Uganda National Assembly, it's a long name, National Association of the Blind, Western Uganda Youth's representative at the National Union of Disabled Peoples of Uganda Youth Committee, and international resource person for Uganda National Association of the Blind in Norway. I'll hand over to the tech team now to play the video. Thank you.
Hello everyone, this is Banya Ojok, Assistive Technology User Fellow of International Disability Alliance. I am based in Uganda. I am visually impaired and I use braille displays and screen readers for my daily activities. They have enhanced my educational journey and now they facilitate my access to information and enable me perform my job assignments. Despite huge advancements in AT sector, there is a growing concern that all people with disabilities do not have access to AT, particularly those from underrepresented disability groups have least access to assistive technology. Disability movement identifies one of the reasons might be limited participation of these groups in decision-making processes around AT-related policy making, programming, and other activities. For example, research, innovation, production and designing, etc. Aiming to bridge the gaps under the project titled Positioning OPDs as Equal Partners on Assistive Technologies, I and 4 other IDA GDI Hub Assistive Technology User Fellow are bringing the voices of diverse disability groups, collecting evidence and supporting empowerment of AT movement in 4 regions, namely Africa, Asia, Latin America, Middle East, and North Africa. We are providing technical support to the AT stakeholders. We will develop an online survey from AT user perspective and an online course on assistive technology aiming to support the capacity building of persons with disabilities and their representative organizations. We are benefiting from the IDA GDI Hub Fellowship Program through plenty of exposure and learning opportunities. Our collective goal is to improve access to persons with disabilities to assistive technologies, with meaningful participation of AT users and OPDs in AT-related policies and programming. I believe the AT movement will be engaged meaningfully in legal harmonization, programming, budgeting, innovation, research, and production.
Okay, everybody. I think that's it for our session there from IDA. So fantastic to hear from all of them. The video was a bit of a shortcut there, so that was how it finished off, unfortunately. So we're going to go into a break now. I think the time's